Well, today we're going to get started and we're going to talk about the most important employee benefit you can offer after cash. Today's agenda, we're going to look at why education is a benefit and tuition assistance is important. We're going to look at the traditional view of tuition assistance and talk about the goals of the program, the goals of the benefit. We're going to look at linking employee satisfaction to tuition assistance and education as a benefit, linking retention to tuition assistance, and recruitment, and how we're going to develop your tuition assistance plan, a plan to make and evaluate TA benefits to be more strategic for learning and development as well as overall for the company. So we're going to see if we can get you a budget for TA if you don't already have one. And if you have one, let's work on this to get you a little bit more in that TA budget, maybe increase the amounts that your organization offers. And in the end, we should have a fairly robust business case to get started. So traditionally, HR and L&D have worked side by side, not integrated in most instances, but side by side to offer the benefit side. So insurance, the traditional savings accounts and PTO vacation and tuition assistance and learning and development. Well, you're training, you're conducting workshops, boot camps, and focused on educating your workforce. And typically, we try to look at how can we build the bridge between HR and L&D to address the organizational goals. You'll see that learning and development is increasingly becoming a critical employee benefit from the point of view of your employees. Okay, so it's just not TA addressing going back to school for your employee workforce, but it's addressing learning goals and HR goals. Typically, and this is a traditional role of tuition assistance, it's been for recruiting, development, and retention, but the highest priority has always been on recruitment. And so what we have to look at is maybe the lower priority in some instances, and that's been employee development. Human capital is a depreciating asset, and with depreciating assets, those skills get lost over time. So how do we keep those skills going? It's through continuous education and through an education program that can help a lot of your employees remain relevant. And when we look at the segment of the population that's coming into the workforce already there, 93% of the millennials are just staying maybe 2 years or less. And so they're worried about two things. They're worried about their role in the organization becoming obsolete, and how do I contribute? And so really right now, millennials has been a strong focus. And coming up soon behind them are those folks that are in middle school. The jobs don't even exist for them now. So how do we continue to remain relevant? It's through education. How do we fund that? Well, training and development budgets are limited. How do we fund it? We fund it through tuition assistance. So again, it's been normally controlled by HR. We've used it to recruit and attract high quality talent, but then nobody uses it. Nobody takes advantage of the program because, well, maybe they just don't know enough about it, or it could be that it's too cumbersome, it's too hard to take advantage of it. And really nobody asks any questions and as to measure the outcomes of the tuition assistance program, which they should be. We should be measuring it. So supporting development with tuition assistance, these are the questions you want to ask. Do you have goals for your tuition assistance program? As education is a benefit, what are those goals? Are they linked to key performance indicators within the organization? And what are the criteria for participation? Is it too onerous to get involved and get in and take advantage of that benefit? And is the criteria really matching the goals? Because if the goals are, let's say, retention or recruitment or productivity, if it's too hard to get in, you're not going to hit those goals. So if we look at company KPIs for tuition assistance, most companies, and this comes from a human capital media study, Most companies say employee satisfaction, that's the biggest reason why we have tuition assistance. But then look at retention, recruitment, and productivity. They're too low. It's to me, those should rank as high, if not higher, than employee satisfaction. If we're going to link learning to the success of the organization and make it a strategic initiative, we need to look at how does it impact retention, how does it impact recruitment, and how does it impact productivity. And those numbers of 16, 12, and 12 are just too low. So in the question of retention, it has a direct link to learning and development. And it's logical to use tuition assistance to reach your goals. Development opportunities are the #1 reasons people stay with the company. This is noted in recent surveys. Again, those millennials, 68% of them think 2 years or less is the right amount of time to stay in a job. So how do we retain them? How do we make them feel that they're not going to go obsolete? And again, in the recent survey, 16% said retention was the goal of their TA policy. You saw it in the previous graph. But 37% said it had a positive impact on retention. Why wasn't that goal higher? We need to look at this from a business and a strategic initiative standpoint. So what I want you to do right now is I want you to calculate the potential impact. And we're going to look at the potential impact of how your current workforce is with millennials. So let's look at the millennial population of your workforce. And if you have the number, great. If not, you can see some examples here in a second. But let's look at the number of millennials in the workforce. Now, what's the current turnover rate of this group? What's the percentage of turnover? Now ask, what is the cost to replace that one person? What is that replacement cost? So your annual cost of turnover among millennials is calculated this way. And just think about this. Once you do the calculations, what if you could save 3%, 5%, or 10% and reduce that turnover by those percentages? So we're going to look at this one example of an insurance company. The number of millennials in this insurance company's workforce is 42,000, a significant number. The turnover rate is 64%. The cost to replace, recruit, and hire, retain on average is about $5,000. So now if we do the calculations, the number of employees that we're replacing at 64% of the 42,000 is 26,880. The cost of that turnover, that 64% turnover, is $134 million. Now look at the reduction. If we reduced it by 3%, 5%, and 10%, those are significant numbers. And you need to think about that as you build this business case, because somebody somewhere in the finance area is going to say, hold on, if we raise tuition assistance and people start to use it, it's going to cost us money. But if we don't use it, look at the money we're going to lose. If we start using it as a retention tool, we're going to save dollars. Again, in another organization, this is a contact center, a business process organization. Again, 71,000 employees of that organization are millennials. 112% turnover. That's amazing. The cost to replace that average $4,000, and you can see the number. Again, if you could go and say, let's try to reduce it by 3%, that's $9 million in savings. Give me half of that to put into tuition assistance or increase tuition assistance. That's what I would be saying in my business case. We've measured these programs in specific learning organizations in Bellevue University's Human Capital Lab. We've looked at call center, and in the contact center arena, they had a reduction of 22% in turnover. 22%. Well, that's bigger than the 3, 5, and 10% we were calculating on. In the insurance company that we measured, 18% reduction in turnover. Significant. And in retail, we looked at a retail organization which has an even higher number of turnover, 28% reduction. So those numbers are real. Those are real case studies you can find at humancapitallab.org at Bellevue University. Let's talk about recruitment for a second. The ability to recruit talented employees was cited by 12% of the company, the graph early on where this is one of the goals, 12%. But when asked about the outcomes, those that measured it, they got 28% increase in recruiting power. Again, a significant number. So now you're recruiting employees that are willing to learn, and you're saving money because you're not having that turnover. Also, when you increase retention, you reduce the cost, okay? So since that was reduced by 5%, you're now attracting interested, learning, good performers, and less turnover. Again, tuition assistance, tuition as a benefit, can help you increase the bottom line. Fred Reichheld said in The Loyalty Effect that the true cash flow consequences of employee turnover far exceed the manager's intuitive estimates. And we found that so far in many of our studies. In fact, the turnover tax on corporate earnings, although invisible to most accounting systems, is larger than any state or federal tax. So think about this, just that number that you're going to save in turnover. Okay, the key is to recognize that employee retention is not only critical for cost efficiency, but also an important factor in revenue growth because it has a direct link to customer acquisition. And Reichheld studied this very much in depth. And if you can see here, the long-term value of the employee in Reichheld's chart shows that, yes, in the first year, that employee's costing me money. It's costing me to train that employee. It's cost to bring them in. It's cost to, the recruitment cost and the development cost of that employee. But if I continue to invest, in 6 years, their value to the organization increases tenfold. And so Reichheld hit on something here, and I think we really need to study this a little bit more. You can look at Reichheld's book, The Loyalty Effect. So let's talk about what we want to do in our recruitment and retention strategy and supporting development in our organization. So think about this. What's the annual dollars that your company allots for tuition assistance? Okay, is it enough? If it's not, this business case is going to help you make the case to get more money. Let's be plain and simple about it. Now, if your tuition assistance max is $2,000, that's not going to pay for much college every year. But if you go to the 5250, which is $5,250, it's tax-free to the employee, and you're writing it off as a benefit provided to the employee. So you have a tax implication here in which you can also save money. And are you limiting the number of employees that can go through the program? And do you make it too hard? I will tell you in study after study by the Lumina Foundation, and two of them I'll mention here, Discover Financial saw 149% return on investment when they eliminated the barriers to their tuition assistance. From day one, they can go in and take advantage of tuition assistance. At Cigna, 129% increase in return on investment just by limiting the barriers and promoting tuition assistance within their organization. Retained more workers, developed those workers using the tuition assistance dollars, and the cost went down. So your company program can have a direct impact on those key performance indicators like recruitment and retention. That's a big deal. And you can make the case just by doing the math, checking the numbers, and revise the TA policy or make strong recommendations. Partner with HR, partner with benefits to make those recommendations. It is a true value, and those organizations that value employees and they have a culture of learning and a culture of valuing the employees truly see a return on that investment. Again, I go back to the Lumina study with Cigna and Discover Financial, huge impact in those organizations. So you can also find additional funds for budget in your learning and development because the students going to an accredited university can take advantage of other financial objects like federal financial aid, scholarships, and potential funding through other VA benefits and Pell. And if you can't get to the numbers and you really want to get to the numbers, for being here today, we're going to give you an offer that we'll come in with the Human Capital Lab. We'll do a study. We'll get to some real numbers in your organization, and we'll find out exactly what that looks like. And the education scan that we do is we look at the extent of agreement in your population of employees that education is important. So we measure, is it important? And then is education opportunities and open to all who are motivated by the company. So if the company promotes it, is everybody have a chance to take advantage of it? We measure that too. And then we measure the extent of agreement within the organization that education is good for the company. Do they feel that going back to school and the learning that they're taking part in really is good for the company? And we also ask, is it good for them? Is it good for the employee? So I hope you take advantage of the opportunity today to go back to your organization and build that business case to either increase your tuition assistance, to use it and leverage it as a strategic initiative for learning and development in your organization. And if you got to get to the numbers, let us know. We're willing to help, and we'd appreciate you to evaluate this session when you're complete. Thank you.